Welcome, low ego action heroes. This is Debbie Levitt from deltacx.com. We're a full service CX and UX consultancy, and welcome to episode 148 Make Your UX Portfolio Stand Out. And for those of you who don't know me, hi, I'm Debbie, and hopefully you're a new pal. And I've been working in UX for a zillion years. I started with the dinosaurs, so I'm somebody who could be your hiring manager, and that's kind of the approach that I take with portfolios. Hi, Linda. Hi, Tara. Is that how you say that? First time joining. Excited to be here. Thanks. Hi, I10. Hi, Abby. So we're going to jump right in today. I think today's going to go long. I've got so much to get to. But of course, first, as always, let's give a quick thanks to everybody on YouTube who is donating to the channel through the YouTube memberships. It is totally optional. But thanks to those who are. I always appreciate it. You keep me in chocolate chips and streaming software. So thank you so much. It is always appreciated. Wow, lots of people here. Hello, Janice, Anna, Pradyot, Roberto. Okay, so I'm going to start with a bunch of slides that I made for today. I'll take these off the screen. You'll see it on the side. No, you won't see it on the side. I'll keep it on the screen. Hello, Bright. So I'm going to jump into some slides that I made, and we won't see the chat room for that period of time, but then I'm going to talk through the common portfolio mistakes I see and which portfolios stand out to me in good and bad ways. Hello, Steph. So let's jump into my slides, and I think I have to press this button. All right, that was not the smoothest transition, but that's good enough. Okay, so let's talk about how to make your portfolio stand out. Copyright Debbie Levitt. Oh, wait, now hold on. I have to jump over to PowerPoint so I can go to the next slide. Oops. Okay, here we go. Okay, so some of you may or may not know my phases of proficiency model, which I went through in episode 56, if you want to go watch that, old chestnut. And basically, I talked about how, to me, there are different phases of becoming proficient, especially in UX and CX. So we've got building blocks, science and technique, and strategy. And the way that I explain it is basically that building blocks is, what are we doing? We're working in Figma. We're sketching screens. We're going to ask people questions. And that means you're kind of doing UX at a bit of a surface level. You might not know why you're doing these things. You might not totally know how you're doing these things. You might not know why you're doing one thing versus something else. And so you're really at this very kind of new surface level. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's where we all start. But the question is, can you go past that? What I'm calling science and technique is when we start using critical thinking. How are we doing these things? Are we using principles of cognitive psychology? Are we picking the right methods? How are we bringing psychology and human behavior and other things related to UX into our work, whether that work is on the research side or on the design side? Excuse me. I was just having some spring allergies before the stream started, so excuse me, please. And then, of course, to me, at the highest phase of proficiency for someone who isn't yet a leader and is still kind of that worker person or individual contributor, it's strategy. We would want to be strategic about things, really understanding how long does work take? How do we plan work? What's the right work to do here for the outcomes that we're looking for? So these are quite generally my phases of proficiency. These are some of the things I'm looking for when I am reviewing portfolios and interviewing people. So first of all, how do I stand out? Let's answer the question before we get to some of the details. And to me, and other people may tell you differently, this is my professional opinion, you can stand out by having skill, by being at least at that middle level of the phases of proficiency, which I can roll out again. Yes, no, I didn't do it. No, maybe. Can we, is it out? I can't see it. Hold on. Yes, there it is. Okay, so too many screens. So being at least showing some of that science and technique, because the building blocks land is kind of that anyone can do UX kind of feeling. You hear it all the time. Fake it until you make it. Anybody can do UX. I can sketch screens. I can talk to users. That's building blocks land. Once we care about the quality of the work being done, and if it's got science and technique and process, that's where we're in that next level. So to me, That's what I'm looking for in a portfolio. And for you to be able to speak to that skill, both in your portfolio storytelling and when I interview you. What methods did you use? What approaches did you use? Where did you make a decision to do something or not do something? Why did you do something? Why didn't you do something? How did you use something from earlier in your process, later in your process? That's why it's a process. That we've got user-centered design and we have derivatives of user-centered design like Double Diamond. I'm more of a user-centered design fan. It's a process because these things are supposed to inform each other, and things you do earlier in the process are supposed to show up again later and influence what you're doing. Does your portfolio show that you're doing that, or will I learn that from interviewing you? And as you can see on the screen, for those of you looking at the screen, and some don't see the screen, and so I'm reading all the slides today, when 96% of the portfolios I see look like people who aren't ready for their first job, you'll stand out by looking like you're ready for your first job. In fact, in an earlier episode we did, it might have been episode 19, where we spoke to some hiring managers. One of them said he thought that 99% of the portfolios he was seeing didn't look ready for their first job. So to me, the main way to stand out is going to look like you have leveled up to enough skill and proficiency for your first job. Now, that being said, let's go over a couple of quick points, and I do have about 10 slides today. So now, I do prefer web-based portfolios. Back in episode 54, I said, oh God, don't have a PDF portfolio, and a bunch of people freaked out. Well, it's 2 years later, and let me just say, I do prefer web-based portfolios, but if you have a PDF portfolio, I'm going to look at it. Just because I happen to prefer web-based portfolios doesn't mean I won't look at a PDF portfolio. It just means I have a preference. It doesn't mean I have, I'm cutting you off there. Now, you can also use accordions to make your portfolio seem shorter or tighter, but still have information that hiring managers and those who want more of the story or process. So a lot of people say, oh, I have to have a very short portfolio because recruiters don't want to see all that information and some other people don't want to see all that information. Okay, but what about the people like me who are looking for all of that information? I've got to judge you by that information. I can't really go by the short version. I need more information. So we can use accordions. Remember, your first chance, if you're a designer, to show me how you designed is your own portfolio. Did you think about the audiences that might see your portfolio? The recruiters or HR people who might not totally understand UX and are just looking for some key things. The hiring managers who really get UX and are looking for other key things and possibly other audiences. So think about using accordions that open and close so you can say, if you'd like to learn more about my process or more about this study or whatever, open this accordion. And great, works for me. And for people who don't want to see that, it still looks short. So to me, that's one of the top tips. So I put it right at the front of the show for people who want to stop watching. But no, keep watching. Now, I kind of don't care about your personal brand. I've had a few people say, because I do free portfolio reviews, I've had a few people say, well, what do you think of my personal brand? I kind of don't care. I kind of don't care what picture you chose of yourself, your colors, your font, if you've gone more serious or more funny with stuff. I kind of don't care. I'm looking for someone who can do whatever this job is at whatever level it is. Your personal brand is extremely secondary to me. If you are not an author, a speaker, an influencer, a thought leader of some sort, I kind of don't care about your personal brand. So go ahead and have some sort of look and feel for your portfolio website, but I wouldn't get too hung up on personal brand unless you're looking to be some sort of author, speaker, thought leader, etc. By the way, I can see the chat room, so if anybody has questions, please do ask as I'm going. Hello, Melanie. So today I'm going to talk about how hiring managers and others might review portfolios for junior and higher level jobs that require experience. Now I'm specifying that because anybody who has no experience could or should be able to get a grad or intern or apprenticeship job. Even if you have the worst portfolio on the planet, you could get one of those jobs if the understanding is that you're coming into this program to learn, to be trained, to be coached. So I want to make sure I'm really clear that if your portfolio isn't strong or doesn't show that skill and proficiency, that doesn't mean you'll never get a job or that I think you're bad at UX. It just means that you might not be ready for the type of junior job where they're hoping for people with at least some experience, because many of these jobs, you're just put on a project and you have to work alone. And if a job doesn't think you're ready for that, they're probably not going to interview you. However, if the job isn't that and it's kind of a level below that where you're coming in to learn, then sure, any portfolio goes at that point. So I'm talking about jobs that do not expect to do much training or coaching with you. They expect you to come in at that junior or even mid-level and hit the ground running. Next slide. So what's wrong with having your portfolio on something like Dribbble or Behance, something that is very image-based or UI-based? Well, okay, again, my opinion, I find that these usually, but not always, are portfolios showcasing UI, visual, graphic, packaging, brand, or logo design. But I rarely see real UX work on Dribbble or Behance. If the work or project doesn't include correctly planned and executed research done with real or archetypal users, it's probably not UX. Just saying the boss and his husband loved it isn't research or testing. Happy clients are awesome, but it's still not UX. So if you designed something you like or something you think will work well without doing any research or using research someone else did, it's probably not UX work. It might be web design or UI work. And I find that the portfolios on Dribbble and Behance often have no context. They're kind of like the which UI is better on LinkedIn. Like a project will say, here's my UI for a bank. And I'll say, well, how'd you get there? Who are the bank's clients? Are they all 23 years old and want bright purple? What do we know about the audience? How did you get here? And so I'm trying to understand people's process and approach, which means I would want a portfolio project or case study to tell that story and also give me the context for how people are going to use whatever this is. How did you know this was the best or right design to make for people and their context? We've got that graphic too, right? People, systems, context. And often I find on Dribbble or Behance a lot of these UI type portfolios, which again are fine if you're looking for a UI job, but not necessarily UX job. But I find that very often these people haven't studied accessibility. So if you want to show me that you can do UI work, that's great, but I really want to see attention to accessibility because accessibility is not optional. Okay, next slide. So what else is unlikely to be a UX project? Now, if you or someone didn't do good UX research, it's unlikely to be a UX project. UX is about how we bring customer or user centricity into our decisions or actions. So if you tell me, I ran a survey, I Googled a little bit about the topic, I made a persona, now I'm designing. That doesn't sound like a UX project. That mostly sounds like you're making something that you think will sound good. How about things I also hear like, the client wanted a better landing page, so I thought about users. I had empathy for users, that goes with this, and I did some designs. I made a better landing page. Okay, but it sounds like no users were involved in that. We just thought about them. The startup had an idea of what to build. I did the designs. They were released live without UX testing. Again, doesn't sound like UX work. Sounds like web design or app design without a UX process or UX approach. So that also includes most hackathons, charrettes, and design jams. In general, I find these to not be strong portfolio projects because they were usually speed over quality, and they usually didn't include anything that we have, let's pull it up, in user-centered design. We don't really have this process happening. We don't really have research and information architecture and things like that. So without these things guiding us, I'm worried that your project isn't UX, and therefore it's not going to show me what you can really do at a real job. So before you take some of these projects, free or paid, hackathon or whatever, make sure they're really going to help you level up because you're doing real UX work, and someone with years of UX experience is going to check your work. Otherwise, it's probably guessing, and the portfolio might show me a lot of guessing. So I've learned that some hiring managers start a portfolio at the top to see the story you tell in whatever order you tell the story. I've heard that some hiring managers scroll to the bottom of a portfolio project and check your solution. If they don't like your solution, they don't care how you got there. So if something is weird about the solution, make sure to tell that in your story in case people start at the bottom. But to me, that sounds like someone I don't want to work for, because to me, the beauty of what I do is in the process. It's in all of the different steps that I take and the skill and technique that I bring to them that help me get to whatever the end point was. It wasn't about, what do I think of the end point? It looks good, doesn't look good. You are supposed to want to know about what I do, whether or not you happen to like what happened at the end, because maybe you don't like it, but maybe it worked for the project. You're supposed to be looking through what I've done and assessing my skill and technique. So to the hiring manager starting at the bottom, I don't think you're doing it right, but I can't change you. I'll keep trying. I've also found that many hiring managers report that they're sometimes spending 90 seconds or less in your portfolio. And now, just as we're already 17 minutes into this show, so just as an example of time, they're spending 90 seconds or less. They're looking for something that makes them want to interview you, and they're looking for the red flags that make them say, I don't want to interview this person, and then they move on. That means they typically only look at one project. So having more projects in your portfolio doesn't mean you're more likely to get an interview. Sometimes people ask me, how many projects should I have? And I say, good ones, strong ones. One strong one is fine. Doesn't have to be 3, 7, whatever. Quality is more important than quantity, especially if you're junior or mid-level. I don't expect you to have worked at 7 places. I expect you to have worked at 0 or 1 or 2 places. Kayleen says, my struggle has been figuring out how to keep my portfolio short. I know things can be hidden in Accordions, but even so, there's a lot of people looking for those in 9 seconds. IA and findability has been a struggle. It's true. I'll certainly be working with you on that, but it's hard. It's UX design. Oh, thank you, Ernesto. Thank you. That's extremely sweet. Oh, thank you. Thank you for subscribing. Everybody, won't you please subscribe? I know it's on top of my face. Please subscribe, ring the bell, say all so that you'll know when we're live on YouTube. That would be great. And if you'd like to know more about joining our Slack channel and other things that happen in the Delta CX world, go to deltacx.com/links and learn more about our show schedule and joining our Slack and stuff like that. So yeah, remember, in a sense, maybe your second UX design project is your portfolio, and it's not easy because you really have to think about these audiences and what they want to see to get the right information to them. Continuing with my slides, beware of group projects. It's really hard for me to choose to interview you when I can't tell what tasks you did, or if everything was done by the whole group, or you only did the tasks from your previous comfort zone. I see a lot of portfolios from people in boot camps and programs where they're coming from visual or graphic design, and when it came time for the group project, they just did the visual design because that was in their comfort zone. So I can't choose to interview you for a UX project when everybody else did the UX work and you kind of didn't. I also want to say beware of what I call, Kayleen says, if you stay for just 10 more seconds, I'll answer everything. Manuel says, in terms of quality, how do you define what the projects to work on and put on your portfolio as a junior designer? Yeah, it's really about showing the skill. To me, it's about finding the projects that really do want the UX work and not just the web design or the UI stuff. It's hard. Radu says, hi, Debbie. Love your insights. Agree. Thank you, Radu. Melanie says, I agree. I finished my portfolio's never finished. Yeah, my portfolio's never finished. It's same for all of us. So back to the slides. Beware of I did a thing. I see this so much in portfolios, and I think I talked about it in episode 54. I see things like, and then I ran a survey. And then I talked to some users. And then I sketched some screens. Well, remember, a lot of jobs, not all of them, but a lot of jobs want to know how you did this. They're looking for process. They're looking for quality. They're looking for decisions you made and techniques and principles you applied. They're looking for why did you do something or not do something? So it's really important to make sure you are speaking to someone like me who wants to do that. Brooke says, I'm guilty of I did a thing. And yeah, a lot of people are. And a lot of people have done that because someone told them make your portfolio shorter. And so instead of saying, I decided to interview 12 people and I found them through this method because I did this, and then I was going to ask them these questions. These were my favorite 3 questions because they really led to some great insights. Someone said, your portfolio's too long. Just tell them you talk to people. And I, as the person who wants to hear that longer story, I'm going, now I don't want to interview this person. So I think accordions can be our friends here. And again, this is the difference between I did some work and here's the good process and approach that I used to do the work well. I mean, if I can get what's the right word here? Egotistical. I know we're all low ego action heroes here. We'll put up our graphic. If I can get egotistical for a quick moment, you're probably here on my channel because you know I'm going to explain things thoroughly and you know I'm going to tell you it's in my head and I'm going to get it out there in a way that makes sense to you and I'm going to piece a story together in a helpful way. Same thing for your portfolio, not in an egotistical way, but I want someone who can speak to that work because I always imagine that a portfolio is you at a job giving a presentation about the project. That's how I imagine it. Now, that might not be what it is, but that's how I imagine it. I imagine this is you working for me, giving a presentation or a report about something you did. How's your storytelling? What's your stuff like? Uh-oh, people are crying. Nth version. Pradyot says, how do you remember the number of videos for every topic you bring up? It's mostly because I tend to recommend the same videos over and over. My boyfriend asked me that earlier today. He was like, do you really remember those or you're like working off something? All right, let's go on. I've got a few more slides. Hey, I am so over stock photos in your portfolios. Is this you? Is this a stock photo? I do not want stock photos in your portfolio. This is supposed to be your story about you and your project. If you can't show photos or images because you didn't take them or because it's confidential and you can't show stuff, I recognize some people might like stock photos, but remember, I don't know if that's actually you or a stock photo. I don't know who that is. And so it's not obvious that it's a stock photo. So sometimes I look at this portfolio and I go, is this a stock photo? What is a stock photo doing in your case study? That's so weird. Linda says, all of your portfolio projects are group projects because it was part of a class, a school org, or working with a designer and UI folks. Well, hold on. When I say group project, let's back up for a moment because Linda's got a good point. When I talk about a group project, I mean where multiple people did the UX tasks. I don't mean you were the researcher and someone else did the design and I'm looking at you for a research job. That's got clear delineation of roles. That one's really clear. But if it's 4 of us did the UX design, which I see for many bootcamp and school projects, unless you have really precise storytelling about who did what, it's hard for me to look at it because I might see bad work and think you did it. And I might see good work that other people did that you didn't do and wonder if you did it. So it's not that you're never going to work with another human being again. It's more that when you tell me 4 people worked on the research or 3 people worked on the design, you've got to use your storytelling so that I know which stuff here did you do. I'm looking at your portfolio to essentially judge you and decide if I want to interview you. I need to know which stuff here you did. All right, so I don't love stock photos. I suggest leaving them out. So, as for some other videos you can watch here on the Delta CX YouTube channel, episode 54 was my old portfolio advice video. Most of that is still relevant, I think. Episode 56, of course, was phases of proficiency. Episode 128 is about giving more concise and compelling interview answers. And episode 129 is about the questions we should ask during interviews to make sure this is the environment, support, and UX maturity that we want. Because too many juniors are surprised later that nobody looks at their work, nobody's teaching them, nobody's helping them, and they feel in over their heads. Okay, but did you check while interviewing that they planned to give you support? Many say to me, no, I never even checked. I just assumed they knew I was a junior. They were going to support me. A lot of these companies don't. They expect you to come in and hit the ground running, and they don't necessarily assign other people to check your work or help you out. So good to know during the interview, what's the program here? Also, I find that too many mid-levels and higher assume that because a job wants you to come in, that they want you to come in and make things better and be a change agent and analyze their processes and improve their processes and raise UX maturity. Then you're often surprised when you've got no authority to make any change, and the company is quite happy to stay a feature factory that barely cares about users. So it's better to understand while interviewing what authority this job has. Just because the job says you should evangelize UX doesn't mean you've got the power to make change. So these are important things to ask during the interview. I've got another slide, and then we'll talk about what we're going to talk about today, and I think we're going to run late. So remember, an expert, like me, if you don't mind me saying I'm an expert can tell if you are faking it but not quite making it. An expert can tell if you are guessing at what you're doing. An expert can tell if you don't really have a process or you aren't utilizing a process correctly. An expert can tell if you appear to understand why you did anything you did, or if it looks like you don't know why you're doing things. You're just parroting something the school said to do. An expert can tell if you are doing your work at a surface level or building blocks level. And for the people who can't tell these things, do you want to work for the person you could fool? If you still need training, help, and support, but you faked it and they think you can make it, then they'll think you don't need training, help, or support. They'll just believe you can do this. Linda says, episode 129 has saved me 10 times over. I turned all the questions into a OneNote template. I opened it up during the interview and I asked questions. It has helped out in some bad situations. Melanie says, agree. That was my biggest mistake. I assumed support, but was not part of the company. Yeah, hurts all the time. Laura says, I've done the same as Linda. I even have those questions in mind as I'm reading job descriptions, and it's kept me from applying for roles where I can see it in the job description itself. Awesome work, everybody. Awesome, awesome. Love it. So what I'm going to talk about now is everything on this screen, but in order. So I'll just read it through, and then I'm going to take it off the screen, and we'll just talk about it. So this is what I see in most portfolios. The portfolio starts with a home screen and a list of projects. This is usually where we start with what I call your promise to me. And this is where you say something like, I'm a highly empathetic designer who involves the user in you know what I'm talking about. I treat that as your promise to me. If you don't show those things in your portfolio project, then I believe you've broken a promise to me. If you tell me you're highly empathetic and I don't see empathy in your story, you've broken a promise to me. If you tell me you are a research-oriented designer and I don't see you doing research or using someone else's research, you've broken a promise to me. Whatever the heck, hi, Muchimisi? I don't know. I'm sorry, I don't know. I gave you an Italian pronunciation. I don't know how to pronounce you. Whatever you put on that freaking homepage is your promise to me, and you better keep it. If your portfolio doesn't keep that promise, then change your promise, because I take that as your promise to me. When you tell me I am highly innovative, I expect to see a freaking innovation in your portfolio. I expect to see nothing I've ever seen before in my life because it is so freaking innovative. If you tell me you are blah, 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 I expect to see it. So, you can't just tell me you are. You got to show me. Bober says, right. And can I tell from your homepage which project I should look at? Very often people have multiple projects, and that's okay. Sometimes some are just older, sometimes some are better, sometimes one shows more research, one shows more design, one shows more branding work. That's all fine. But can I tell from your grid or list or choice of projects what you did for them? Pull that out. Show me that on the homepage. That way, if I'm looking at you for a research job, I don't accidentally pull up your UI work. So help me out. Help me find the right project. Hey, Williams. Oh, hey, Williams. It's Williams, everybody. Hey, Williams, new Act Your Friend. So then we get into the individual project page. We've got the project background and the project team with the roles and responsibilities. Please do give me a short paragraph on the project background telling me things like, is this project real? Was it from school? Was it real and from school? Was it fake? Was it a passion project? Was it a sample project? I need to know. I need to know what's going on here. Then I need to know who was involved in this. So if you're the only person, tell me that. If other people worked on the UX, tell me what they did, and make sure as you go through the story, say, I did this, but Sammy did this. Bober says, can you tell us how to write a case study in a correct way? I don't know if we're going to make it that far today. Today, I'm mostly talking about what I'm looking for. I think if you take what I'm looking for in a portfolio and you build it into that, you could have something good. Like, to me, there isn't one correct way, but you can definitely run the risk of not showing me what I need to know. Kayleen says, so far, so good. So again, project team, roles and responsibilities. Who worked on this thing so I can get a sense of what did you do? And again, if you're not the only person who worked on UX aspects, make sure during the portfolio project or case study, you're clear, Kayleen did this and Debbie did this. Kayleen and Debbie worked together on this. That way, I know who did what. Okay, so research. Now, there's if you are a researcher and you're doing the research, your portfolio will show research. If you're more of a designer, I don't expect your portfolio to show research, so don't worry about that. Some people say to me, I'm really more of a designer. Do I have to have research in my portfolio? You don't have to. If you are not a strong researcher or you don't enjoy it and you're just going to go for design jobs, don't worry about research. But I will want to see how you use research in your design, but we'll get there when we get to the right side of the screen. So still on the violet left side of the screen, research. Did you tell me anything about your research plan, your research goals, and your research methods? Very often I see portfolios that say, I did research, I talked to 3 people. Hold on there, little doggy. Did you have a plan? Do you know how to write a plan? Did you have goals? Can you tell me what the goals of the research were? Can you tell me what methods you chose and why you chose them? How did you know you needed to run a survey? How did you know you needed to interview people? How did you know you needed to observe a task? Now, again, you might be like, oh, Deb, that's too much. I don't want to go into that. That's a lot of work, or that's going to make my portfolio long. Hide it under an accordion. I want to see that. I'm probably not going to give you the interview without it. So tell me at least a little bit about the plan, the goals, and the methods. You could also link me to your plan. If you have it as a document somewhere, that is something that I will go and very briefly take a look at. 20 seconds, scroll through it. Does this person have reasonable goals? Did they write questions that reflect the goals? Did they choose the right method for this? That's really important for me to take the time to look at it, maybe more than 20 seconds, if this is a research job. So plan, goals, and methods. Then how did you recruit this? Very often portfolios say, I found 3 people, I talked to them. Or I talked to 3 classmates. Well, hold on, who's your target audience? If your target audience isn't your classmates and you talk to your classmates, you better use your storytelling to tell me why. Why did you kind of talk to the wrong people? Why did you willingly set up your project for possible flaws or disaster by talking to the wrong people? Do you know who you were supposed to have spoken to? Why did any of this happen? Use your storytelling to fill in the blanks and give me the missing pieces as to what happened and why. Linda says, I hide a lot of methods or details of stuff under Accordions to provide 2 views to the project, a pretty one for HR and a detailed one for UX. I love it. Craig says, "Hi, Debbie. I'll message you about something separately." He said intriguingly, "Because it is." Okay, thanks, Craig. That was good. I look forward to that message. It sounds good already. All right. And you don't have to worry about it popping up because I'm only sharing my PowerPoint screen. All right, what else? Recruiting, yeah. How did you know how many people to talk to or test with or whatever it is? Where did you find them? How did you find them? Did you just grab the closest people you could even though they weren't right for the study? That's gonna burn. Linda says, "This is incredibly helpful. I'm frantically scribbling down stuff to fix and change." Okay, thank you. That's what the show is for. Next on the research list is execution. And by that, I mean when you actually run the research sessions, whether these are interviews or observing people doing tasks or going to meet with people in person if it's safe, or whatever else you did. It could even be a survey. A survey can be executed on. So when you executed on it, how did you do it? I want to know. And just saying, and then I talk to people. That's not really how you did it. I want to know more about how you did it and any interesting methodologies that you might have used. So again, you don't have to say a lot about the execution because the execution is mostly, and then I carried out my plan, but use your storytelling to let me know if anything went wacky with your plan. Was there an interesting situation that came up that you had to deal with? Maybe it would be helpful for me to know what kind of problem solver you are. So, all of these can be good things. I don't need a portfolio where everything went right. I don't need a portfolio where endless magic happened and everything went right and we all lived happily ever after. I don't mind a portfolio project where there were problems, mistakes, technical issues. I don't mind a portfolio project where the project fell apart and this never got released, or it fell apart, or you designed it one way and the engineers built it another way. I mean, I don't need these to have happy endings. I just want to know what happened and what you did. Melanie says, "I find Notion's great with accordions and hiding text details." Really, anything is. WordPress can do it. These things are out there. It's an accordion, y'all. Next on research, I want to know more about analysis, synthesis, insights, pain points, and opportunities. This is the point in the portfolio where people normally put up an affinity diagram. It is normally an affinity diagram with like 8 sticky notes on it. I don't get it. I know Kayleen right now is having exclamation points explode over her head when she thinks about the affinity diagram she worked on last summer with my apprenticeship project. You must have had 500 notes on that screen. Whenever people go, "And then I did an affinity diagram and it has like 8 notes on it," I'm always like, did you not hear anything anyone said? Did you not see anything interesting that they did? Why do you have like 16 notes on the screen? That's like nothing. What? William says, "I definitely concur with your perspectives on portfolio details or journey, but then how about the rule of thumb of a recruiter spending approximately less than 30 seconds and this would be overwhelming?" Yes, that's the downside of joining us late. I've been saying that accordions are your best friends here because you can use an accordion to hide the additional details that somebody like me will want, and you can have the accordion default to closed so that sorry, messages from Craig are coming up on my phone. Craig, it's all right. I'm happy to hear from him. So accordions are your friends. Accordions can be closed for the people who like the short portfolios, and accordions can be opened by people like me who say, "Yeah, but how does Solomon do that?" Solomon says, "A recruiter looking at your portfolio versus a hiring manager." That's right. We've got to design for multiple audiences all the time, y'all. This is another opportunity to do that. So analysis, synthesis, insights, pain points, and opportunities. I find that sometimes portfolio projects and case studies don't sum up well what they really learned. And I find sometimes they tell me very mundane things, or sometimes it's just repeating what the survey said. And a lot of you know I don't like surveys. I almost never run them. So if you just say, well, 56% of people said they would really like a pink cup. Got an amber cup. I go, well, hold on. How'd you find that out? Did you ask people the research question? Would you like a pink cup? And they all said, well, sure. Well, I go, well, that's flawed research. That stinks. So I want to see more about some of the interesting things you learned. But if you do enough of that good storytelling, I should have a sense of what kinds of questions did you ask and what kinds of questions did you learn? Or what kinds of tasks did you give people to do if this is early observational research or later testing? And what kinds of interesting things did you see? Remember, the more surprising or interesting the thing is, the more I say, this person knows how to create a research study that unearthed the thing that the everyday person wasn't going to find. They found the unmet need. They found the pain point none of us knew about. They noticed the opportunity that other people on the team didn't notice. That's what I want to see. That shows me you're bringing a dimension to this that not everybody else can. That's where you stand out. Don't worry about joining late, Williams. We're just happy to see you here. I think Linda's got, is that accordions? Oh, accordions. At first I'm like, is that popcorn? It's like, no, wait, that's in a physical musical accordion. Sorry, I've got fuzzy hair today. And finally, for research, the artifacts you're creating. And this is usually a huge part of a portfolio, especially for someone from a boot camp or a program. Personas, customer journey maps, empathy maps, task analysis, things like that. And what I want to know is, why did you make these things? Because very often I see, most of those, I made a persona, 2 personas. I made a customer journey map. I made an empathy map. I want to know why you made these things, because the boot camp told me to is not the right answer. Remember, as we move up in our phases of proficiency, which we talked about earlier, episode 56, as we move up in our phases of proficiency, we go from, I made an empathy map because someone told me to do it, to, I'm making empathy maps because here's the reason. Here's the science and technique. And you know what? Here's how I'm going to use that information later. Because very often I see a portfolio project where they've made all these things and they use none of them later. Their design never says, because my persona needs this, this, and this, I designed this. I'm not sure I've ever seen that. Because I learned in research, boop, bop, and beep, I did this. Because I learned this when I watched people in my observational studies, I created this sort of user flow. I almost never see the research artifacts used later, whether you made them or you got them from someone else. It's like someone says, here's the research artifacts. You go, that's fine. I'm just going to make what I like. They have to be brought together. Otherwise, I look at your portfolio and I go, why'd you do the research? Why'd you do the research? Why'd you do an empathy map if you didn't use it later? Was that your mistake in not using it later? Is the empathy map not necessary here? Zach says, also super late, but glad to be here. Good to see you too, Zach. Larry says, an accordion suggests more info is available and piques the interest of the viewer. They're curious about what else you have to say. You can leverage this curiosity to create more interest. Lior says, do you expect the platform we're using for the portfolio where we build our pages to be accessible? Yes, everything should be accessible. That's another good reason to not do the dribble and Behance. I think it should be accessible. I think it should look relatively good on a phone. And Larry says, and stand out. This puts more pressure to make it really interesting. Yeah. So yes, I don't see why your portfolio shouldn't be accessible. If it's accessible, you're showing me you understand accessibility. If I can tab through your portfolio, you probably get accessibility. If you're using colorblind friendly colors, you probably get accessibility. So yes, I would certainly want to see a portfolio project being accessible, and so do people with accessibility needs who could be your hiring manager. Okay, so I was just leaving off on research saying you've got to tell me why you made this stuff. And so often I see personas made so badly. Let's spend a few minutes on personas. I see personas made up and guessed at all the time. And you have to remember that just having made a persona puts you at the building blocks level. But is it a good persona? Is it actionable? Is it usable? So just because you made a persona doesn't mean you made a persona well. And this is a fight I end up having with a lot of bootcamp people. They say, but the people at the bootcamp loved my persona. And I say, But how are you going to use it later? How's it going to inform your design? Well, I don't know. Well, then I don't love your persona. Let's check with some comments. Steph says accordion plus accessibility can be a big challenge. Not impossible. A lot of platforms don't have accessible accordions by default. Lior says this is why I asked. Yeah, I think it really depends. I think you're going to have to put the icon might have to come first, and you might have to make sure it's appropriately tagged and actionable. So yes, good point. Okay. So yeah, personas, we need to talk more about them. I've seen some truly disastrous personas in some portfolios, especially bootcamp portfolios. I've seen a persona that I thought was racist. I've seen a persona that was, I've seen a lot of, here's one woman and one man, and then the personas were nearly identical. And when I said, why'd you do that? They say, oh, the boot camp said make one man and one woman, as if men and women don't ever want the same thing or have the same tasks or do the same thing. It shows me a lack of understanding about personas. Just because you can plug information into a template doesn't mean you've made a persona well. And so remember, UX is not about plugging stuff into templates and canvases and frameworks. It's about doing the critical thinking work that creates something really special. So just because you can make a persona doesn't mean you made a persona well. One of my favorite stories to tell about portfolios is a woman had gone through, I think, Career Foundry, not sponsored. And I felt that her portfolio was quite weak. And in my review, I pointed out a number of things that I thought wasn't strong. And her response to me, typed, was later on, reply was, everything you pointed out as weak, my boot camp praised me for. And when I checked a year and a half later, she still didn't have a UX job. So congratulations on your praise. Congratulations on the boot camp that may have fed you a lot of positivity, which is in episode 56 as to why might a boot camp lie to you. But once you have a hiring manager looking at your portfolio, it doesn't matter what your boot camp praised you for. Linda says, clearly the woman persona needs a pink version of the product. Yes! Steph says, I'm going to cry if I see another 50-year-plus woman assistant as the non-tech savvy cliche persona who needs help with the tool. Thank you, Stephanie. I'm a 50-year-old woman. I am not your non-tech savvy cliche. Thank you so much. Kayleen says, my portfolio covers everything. Good. Yeah, so stay away from cliches, stereotypes. I cannot tell you how many times someone talks about a low-income person and they're always a person of color. I mean, that's not okay. I cannot, oh my gosh, how about the time I saw personas and one of them was described as white and the other was described as non-white. Thank you, Molly. Thank you for subscribing. Everybody, please subscribe. It's fun here. Yeah, we don't divide the world into white and non-white. I also don't want to see a persona that has a percentage of kindness. I don't design differently for kind people versus asshole people. If they're our customers, I'm designing for them. I don't design for people based on their horoscope. I don't design for people based on whether or not they like Starbucks. I don't design for people based on their Myers-Briggs typology. And as Larry will tell you, I don't design for people based on what minivan they drive. Larry says, yes, critical thinking. Your portfolio should demonstrate how you thought through the person, task, design, not just follow the template. Okay, so again, we're going to run late today. I just feel it. I love UX design. This right here. Hey, good to see you. How have you been? Nick, right? All right, so now let's talk about the design portion of portfolio projects. And again, if you're a researcher and you don't have a design portion, that's totally fine. I don't expect to see it. If you're a researcher, I expect to see research. If you're a designer, I expect to see design. And if for some reason you're doing both, you can show me both. That's fine. Steph says the crowd needs details on the minivan story. There is no minivan story. It's just that whenever Larry makes a reference to yucky personas, he talks about soccer mom driving a minivan. That we're not designing differently for minivan drivers. Okay, so let's talk about design. Now, first of all, as I was just saying before, designers, did you work from research? Even if you didn't do the research, does the research work connect to any of your information architecture or interaction design? If you show me a portfolio project and you go, the client wanted a new page, here's my sketches. I go, well, hold on, wait a minute. Where is our process? Where is user-centered design here? Where is the research? How did we know what to design? If you just design something because of what a client said or because of what you think would be good, that's kind of not UX. Right. Larry says, how will the fact that she drives a minivan influence your design of a flower shop website? So true. So first of all, designers, even if you didn't do the research, I expect to see how you used research in your design. Somebody else's research is fine. You don't have to have done it, but you've got to use it. And otherwise, I imagine you're going to show up to my company and be some sort of rogue cowboy where you're going to just be like, oh, we're making a thing for people. I've got an idea. Boop, bop, beep. Hold on, I want to see that you can work from the good research being done and say, aha, here's how I take those insights, pain points, opportunities. I watched the videos. I would love to hear a story. I don't think I've ever seen this. I would love to hear a story in a portfolio or case study where a designer says, first I watched the video clips from the researcher. Then I read through the researcher's report. Then I had 2 hours of meetings with the researcher to make sure I understood what they learned and go through their artifacts. Then I checked the personas and saw, I haven't seen that yet. It's always the client wanted this or the project was this. Here's my sketches. And I say, how'd you get there? How do you know? So that's thing one. If you want to, again, if you're trying to level up and you're trying to look like you do more than building blocks and you work with science and technique, because science and good technique means design comes from research. It's research informed, research driven, data informed, data driven. Larry says what Debbie says. Your artifacts should connect to each other to tell how you got from research, persona, task flow, wireframe, testing, and iteration. All right, so what am I looking for in that design portfolio other than what I just said? First, I'm looking for information architecture. Now, usually, especially in bootcamp portfolios, this is going to be sitemaps and user flows. Doesn't have to be, but that's very often what I'm being shown in most portfolios, especially for people starting out or juniors. Some sort of information architecture. Very often I see sitemaps that are not sitemaps. They have arrows and they point to different things and they don't actually represent pages and subpages. They seem to represent a process, but they're also kind of a sitemap, but they're definitely not a user flow and they're labeled as a sitemap. So be careful, your sitemap should be a sitemap. I find user flows that show that people don't understand flowcharts. I find that they use the wrong shapes for things. I find that they make processes that are very linear and very long. I find that they don't understand branches in a process and that someone might do this or do this. I also find that if I start reading the user flow out loud, it's kind of bad. Someone said, what about the availability of this resource later on? Yes, all of my videos are archived on my YouTube channel. You can find out where, deltacx.com/links. But the DeltaCX YouTube channel is something you should absolutely subscribe to. And you'll be able to find this archived in the live streamed podcasts playlist. It's episode 148. If you're not sure, you can just go to YouTube after this show ends and search for DeltaCX 148. It should come right up. Okay, so let's talk about these flowcharts. I can tell that people don't understand flowcharts and don't know how to make them. And when I start talking through them, they really fall apart. It'll say like, first they log in, then they're shown onboarding. Then, and I go, hold on, are you saying that after login, everyone is shown onboarding every time? Hypothetically not. Hypothetically, there should be a decision point there that says, Is this a new user or a new registration? Maybe they're shown the onboarding, and someone who's already registered bypasses the onboarding. The flow chart is there to represent these paths. If you don't know how to flow chart multiple paths and you're just going to show this very long linear process, they register, we get their email, we get their phone number, we check their email, then we onboard them, then we show them this, then they search for this, then they do this. Hold on, are you sure? Are you sure everybody's doing this one long line of things? They're probably not. Your website or app offers many ways to do things. Your flow chart is supposed to represent that, because your flow chart is supposed to set you up for success in making the screens. If you don't have an optimized task flow or some sort of user flow, then how do you know what screens to design? Now you're super double guessing. And I find that very often when we get to the interaction design, very often in especially bootcamp portfolios, they show me sketches, then they show me medium fidelity, then they show me high fidelity. The sketches I always ignore. I can't tell what's going on there. It's a freaking mess. I don't care. I go to the medium fidelity. But what I sometimes find is that people didn't follow their own damn flow chart. Like, hey, you had this user flow and then you didn't follow it. Like Larry and I say, these artifacts are all tied together. You made a user flow as your model of what you had to make for your screens for your interaction design, and you didn't even follow that. Usually the screens they show me are whatever is the easiest part of the app, like registration. Registration's been around for like 400 years. That is not special for you to design. You could steal that from anywhere, and it's registration. Almost nobody shows me anything with any complexity. Almost always when I get to the screens and the interaction design part of the prototype, and then I onboarded people by asking them their gender and how often they use a thing. And then I tell them a couple of things about the app. And it's like, and that's all I get. And I go, that's the easiest part. In fact, that part shouldn't even be there. No, everyone skips that. Laura W says, y'all are joking, but my mom actually bought a larger minivan to hold more plants. There you go. So much for that. Oh no, we have the cherry-picked example. So be careful of these screens that y'all are showing me in these prototypes, in these portfolio projects, because very often they don't follow your own user flows, which just makes me think you're not even paying attention to your own work, and there isn't even consistency across your own work, and you're not checking your own work, because to me the flow chart is there for me to check my work. Hey, did I create the path if people do this? Did I create the path if people do this? Did I create the path if people do this? So it looks like you didn't even check your own work. Now we have the actual interaction design itself, which very often, especially for bootcamp projects, is an app. I don't know why nobody's designing a website or mobile web, but magically it's always an app. And I can always tell you that almost always people haven't learned interaction design for mobile. And actually, most of the interaction design I see makes me think no one is even paying attention to their own apps. I have seen navigation that doesn't make sense. I have seen app layouts that don't make sense. I've seen so many things that look nothing like what any of our apps use. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm not happy unless you rip off what other apps are doing. I'm not saying go rip off other apps, but there are some common paradigms out there. There are existing patterns out there. There are some existing design systems out there. So when I see people who are using a hamburger menu and a bottom navigation, I say, wow, nobody told you that you're supposed to pick one. You just need one navigation. You shouldn't need two. Linda says, isn't there a Rosenfeld book for app design for mobile? Let me check. Yeah, I don't pay attention to Rosenfeld books, so there might be one. I don't know. Steph says, I ask user flows to students to help them design the pages. I get the impression they sometimes do it after they design the page just to do it. Same for some portfolios. Consistency is key. Yeah, I don't want to see a user flow after you did it to show me you can make a user flow. The point is to do the process in the correct order when order is important. So Be careful of the interaction design that you're showing me. Very often people are showing me poor interaction design. They're showing me things that don't make sense for web pages, that don't make sense for apps. They're showing me sometimes things with a lot of instructions and tooltips and help, but that's bad UX. We shouldn't need all of those instructions and tooltips and help and tutorials. If you build something intuitive that's easy to learn and easy to use, you shouldn't need any instructions, tooltips, or help. But people fill their screens with that stuff. And I say, why didn't you design something easier? You spent all that time designing in help. Why didn't you just make it easier? So I want to see designs that are easy to learn and easy to use, that are going to just work and just make sense for people. I want them to be simple. I want them to make sense to the target user for their context of use. And I want to know why you did what you did. Very often it's, here's a wall of screens. Here's a masonry wall of screens. And I'm sitting there going, but why? Why'd you do any of this? What are some things you tried that didn't work? How did you know they didn't work? What are some things you tried that did work? How'd you know? Linda says, aha, The Mobile Frontier, a guide for designing mobile experiences by Rachel Hinman. Okay, I haven't read it, but it sounds like Linda recommends it. Larry says, I bet most UX managers can tell if a flow was drawn to reflect the design afterwards. I think I can tell for most of the portfolios I see, which again are boot campers and self-studiers and people new to UX. I mostly see those that the user flow came first, but then was ignored later, was not used as your roadmap to the screens that you should make. For prototyping, I normally don't go and look at your interactive prototype because I assume that I'm a busy hiring manager and I have no time to go through an interactive prototype. I'm going to judge your interaction design skills based on your medium fidelity prototype. So some people might look at your medium fidelity wireframes. Some people might go and look and click through your prototype. I'm not going to. I also will not watch a video of your prototype. So again, you can put one up if you want. I skip it. I pretend I am a busy hiring manager who has no time for this. Also optional is visual design. Many, especially bootcamp portfolios, do include visual design or some sort of branding for it's always some sort of brand new startup app idea. And I have to tell you, I ignore that as well. If this is a research job, I don't need your art. And if this is a UX architecture and design job, I don't need your art. So I'm typically ignoring these things, but I will definitely notice if your UI design is not colorblind friendly or doesn't have good color contrast. Then I know you don't know about accessibility, and I think that can be a strike against you. Everybody should be studying and practicing accessibility for people with all different needs, conditions, diagnoses, etc. Finally, testing. Very often I see in portfolios, people will say, and then I tested the idea with 5 people. And again, like our earlier research way over here, they leave out a lot of details. They just say, I tested it with 5 people and I learned people really like the idea. And I go, well, that's how I know you're lying. And then and I learned people really like this when they didn't like this. And you know, some of the worst portfolios that I've seen with regards to this type of thing are people who, whose early research, well, really some of the worst ones would be people who start the project with the idea they already want to build. I already know I want to solve the problem with this. Now I'm going to research. It's not solution first. We have to start solution agnostic. And if you take that into your research, you can bias your research and then it'll look like, oh yes, and usually they've run a survey. Yes, many people like my idea. And I go, I can't interview this person. They're just going to make everything about their idea. And then usability testing at the end. Oh yes, magically everybody likes the idea and there's just a few little things to fix. So be careful about this stuff. It can come off as egotistical to start with, I know the right solution first. Well then, wow, We don't need the whole UX process. You're a genius. You know exactly what to build. I don't know how you knew it, but wow. So be careful of that stuff, because that makes me feel like you're kind of not ready to work in UX, or you might be happier as a web designer who can just have a client say, make me a better whatever, and you go, I'm going to make you the best whatever I can think of. Genius. Larry says, I recommend pointing out which part of your prototype includes an interesting design approach based on your research. Focus on something specific that illustrates your thought process. Yes, I agree. Whether that's in your prototype or your wireframes, tie it back to the research. I designed this because I learned that our audience, blah, blah, blah. Larry's totally right. The more you can tie this all together, the more you're going to stand out from the typical portfolio that I see. And then, of course, did you iterate on your design? Sometimes people didn't. They didn't have time. But again, all of these are times where you can use your storytelling to say, I should have iterated on my design, but this is a 3-week school project and I had to declare it done. But I should have iterated on my design, and this is what I would have done. Okay, use your storytelling. Use your storytelling to fill in for anything that was funky about the project where you want to let me know something didn't go the way it could have or should have, but you know the right way. So use your storytelling for that too. And then finally, usually at the bottom of most portfolio projects, and I don't know who started this, it seems to be from the bootcamp era, there is some sort of conclusion or final learnings. Now, I would expect the conclusion to be a summary of the project, and I would expect the final learnings to be things that were learned in the research and design of the project. But almost every time, it's an emotional self-assessment. Some people love these. I find them very awkward because remember, I'm imagining that your portfolio project is you giving a presentation at work. So to end it with, I learned that I really like research and I should take more time with my design and I should really ask some better questions. I'm going, well, this just turned into a school book report. You know, what? So I personally find these awkward. Some people like them because they are hoping to see that you had some sort of personal growth moment during your project. But I find that kind of strange to turn this into being about yourself when we're supposed to be low ego action heroes. All of a sudden, you're going from a project to my self-assessment of my own emotional growth after this project or whatever. It just seems awkward to me. Again, some people like them. I don't love them. They seem strange to me. Now, that being said, we had one person who volunteered for me to look at her portfolio live, and I haven't seen it before. Now, I have spoken to her on a call. She's lovely. And she is also not straight out of a boot camp. She's been working in UX a few years. It looks like she had a 1-year internship, and then they hired her, and she has some experience. I don't expect her portfolio to look like a typical boot camp portfolio, but we're going to look at it anyway. So let's take a look. All right, this should be, no, this is the, yes, okay. So here's the chat room. Feel free to comment. Here's Courtney. And bye, Kayleen. And I know we're running late, but let's do this together. It's important. So here's Courtney. Let's take a look at what's her promise to us. I conduct end-to-end UX research using a mix of qualitative and quantitative methods. Okay, I'm going to expect to see that. In my current role, I work on enterprise apps for first responders. Prior research projects include voice assistant, bioinformatics, mortgage service. My specialties are tailoring methods to fit the needs of a project. Okay, so that sounds like science and technique headed towards strategy. Translating into actionable recommendations. I'm going to be looking for actionable recommendations. I love helping teams make evidence-based decisions that improve people's lives and meet business objectives. I think this sounds great. It sounds great. It sounds fair. It sounds competent. I definitely want to know more about her. As you can see, I think this is in Notion, so we've got Accordions here. Solomon says, my problem finding skills increased by 34.8%. Yeah, exactly. What? So this looks like an accordion. So here she's listing some of the techniques that she uses. That's fine. Just from a list, I don't know if she does any of these well or poorly, but it certainly doesn't hurt her to list these. It's also good for SEO. These are keywords on the page, so that's fine by me, but I don't assume that just because I see these on the list that she's any good at them, but it's good. Her career journey sounds fine. A little bit of storytelling about yourself is optional, and I think she's got a nice size blurb here. It's not too long or too short. I can kind of skim it or scan it and see she used to do some websites. She was a bookkeeper and event planner, and she felt that she could translate those skills later. And she pivoted into UX because of being in a usability test for refrigerators. Fun little story. She'll know who's looked at that when she goes into an interview and someone says, tell me more about that refrigerator story. And fun facts. I've made a Venn diagram about a Backstreet Boys song. My honeymoon was so bad I won a storytelling contest for it, and I was an extra in a movie, but my scene got cut because I kept looking at the camera. These are great. Now, so I might not necessarily make time to look at all these. I might say, okay, let's get to the work. So she's got three case studies here. Now, I don't know what these icons mean. One of these is kind of swirly. One of these is kind of round. I don't know if these are the logos for the businesses or if they mean something or if they're just cute bullets. But if they are supposed to mean something, I don't know. Now, I'll usually just pick the first one. So on the assumption that your first case study is your best. So I'm going to take a look at her first one. So, okay, so I guess this was maybe the logo for the company. So, summary, generative research of an enterprise web app for Tyler Technologies, a government software company. Super. What did we just talk about? We talked about starting out with a little blurb, so I know what this project is. I can tell that it's real, and I can tell that it's an enterprise web app. Then what did I say? Next, you got to tell me, what was your role? Solely responsible for all UX research, but working with product owners and UX designers. Okay, so anything I see that's research is hers. If I see stuff I like, I credit her. If I see stuff I don't like, I blame her. Now she seems to have links where I can jump down the page. Not necessary for me. I'm going to move through the page. So she's got a blurb about the problem. I'm going to skim it. So here's what my brain sees. Paperwork is an ever-growing part of an officer's job. Writing reports, annoying task. Police reports are critical, completed quickly and accurately. Report writing, designed 20 years ago, couldn't accommodate client needs. New report writing application. So that was me skimming through that. So in just seconds, I have a pretty good idea of what's going on with this project. So I would say this is well done so far. But if you don't agree or you see something different, shout it out in the chat room. Now, this is her learn part. So let's see. Business goals. She's only so much she can tell us about that. They're confidential, but she interviewed internal stakeholders and subject matter experts to understand the business side. She used some existing data to think about her research methods. Hey, Artie! Yes, of course I know who you are. You looked at my LinkedIn the other day, so I was thinking about you. Oh, I would love to catch up with you. Artie, I think it was a year and a bit ago. I think it was early 2021. But I see you have a new job, and I'm so proud of you. I'm excited. We've got to catch up. Today, I don't know if you're late here, so we're doing a live portfolio review, but you are also a hiring manager, so you can speak up to what you see. This is Courtney. She's got a few years of research experience, and so far, she's got a very nice portfolio, and I have not been setting anything on fire and saying that this is a terrible portfolio. Honestly, most of the difficult portfolios that I see, where I have to give people some bad news, are people just out of boot camps or just finishing self-study where they haven't really had that first job yet, and so their skills are still quite low. All right, so existing research. Again, I might just scan through this stuff because I really want to see what she did, but though she's telling us this. Competitive analysis, strengths and weaknesses, secondary analysis, some journal articles. getting to know the existing system, good. Now, so far, I like her process. Notice how thorough it is. It's really thorough compared to what I see from a lot of bootcamp portfolios, where their early stuff would be, I Googled the thing and I ran a survey. But she's doing the correct secondary research before she does what I think will be her primary research. So let's take a look. Although we knew our existing software is outdated, we didn't know what people liked and we didn't like, so we were going to use contextual inquiry. So again, for those not familiar with that term, that's going to be your observational research with your interviews, surveys, and look, she's got an accordion that says plan and method details. I'm so happy. Wow, she's turned out to be the poster child of a great thing here. So basically, she's saying, I chose contextual inquiry because, and again, we don't have, the show's already running late. I know we're going to run extra late today, but she's giving me the information I want, where I can say, hey, this Courtney really seems to know what she's doing. I think we should bring her in for the interview. Remember, the portfolio is speed dating. You just want me to say, I want to meet you, and I would want to meet Courtney. So sounds like she's very thorough. She's thinking about things from different angles. She's accepting data and information from different sources. They originally had, I don't love system usability scale and all that stuff, so I might gloss over that a bit, but if she found something useful in it, that's great. And what were a couple of my key research questions that might have brought out some great insights? And so there you go. Now moving down to conducting it. Radu says portfolio speed dating. Gotta remember this one. Thank you. Contextual inquiry. So she rode along with patrol officers. I mean, come on, it doesn't get better than this. This is absolutely, okay, it could get better than this, but really, Courtney's work looks beautiful. She sounds like she really knows what she's doing. She didn't just call up a bunch of cops and ask them some questions. She rode along with them. She went to the stations. She watched them do what they're supposed to do. She didn't just ask. Steph says, I wonder about the budget. None. At some point of the research is part of the budget. If there was budget none, I missed that. I skimmed right over it. I'm just look, obviously by now, we even 90 seconds into Courtney's thing here, we probably would have decided to interview her, right? We don't need to see the whole thing here to say Courtney looks like a good candidate for a mid-level research job. I don't know if I'd make her senior yet. Maybe. She seems a little early to be senior for 1 year internship and 2 years of experience, but her work is definitely coming along nicely and has good what do you call it? Strategy, science and technique. Pradyot said, "Can I get a link to this portfolio?" Maybe. It looks like it's got she sent a link that was a little bit funky. Let me find it. She might not want it out there because she had like her phone number and stuff on here. So I would say maybe not. Let's just go back to it. But you can find her on LinkedIn and make a new friend. So yeah, so again, at this point in the portfolio, I've seen enough to say she knows what she's doing. And this is very different from a lot of the boot camp. Again, I'm pooping on boot camps. It's not your fault if you've gone through a boot camp. It's the boot camp's fault. They should have taught you better. Radu says, this is why I don't believe so much in levels. Some people deliver amazing work in 2 years into their career. Some spend 10 years and never grow. Yeah, that's right. Even though Courtney's got 3 years of experience, I would consider her definitely for mid-level, and I would be curious if she's ready for senior. It is a little bit of an accelerated road to senior. I usually think of senior as 5 or more years of experience, but if someone's work is really that solid and they're starting to show that strategic aspect that I expect from seniors, then I'm open to giving someone the title early, but only if they really deserve it, not as a negotiating tactic. Steph says, Courtney. Oh, Courtney's here. Courtney says, thank you. I meant no incentives for participants. Yeah, well, we don't want to pay off cops. Do not pay off cops, y'all. Hey, Courtney's here. Courtney, you are the star of the show. And I'm so glad we got to talk some weeks ago or months probably by now So yeah, so again, ultimately, I feel like I don't even need to see the rest of this because I've seen enough that I would want to interview Courtney, and that's all you need. You need to show me enough, or the hiring manager, enough stuff early enough where I go, yeah, for whatever level job we've opened, whether this is junior designer, mid level researcher, whatever it is, for the level of job that we've created, I think this person knows what they're doing. I think this person's ready for that job. I think they can do that job. So, I wish I could find more things to pick on about Courtney's portfolio, but really, it punches me in the face with the right amount of information for stuff. I've seen people now. Again, could the problem be shorter? Sure, maybe it could be shorter, but I don't have a problem with how long this is, especially since I could scan it quickly. I think it shows a lot of good science and technique. I'd probably want to dig a little bit more into some of her insights if she's comfortable sharing them. She does have outcomes. Now notice her learnings. Her learnings are a combination of project-based and self-assessment. And I think that's okay. I don't love the self-assessment outcomes, but at least she gave me some of the stuff I do like, which is like, hey, here's some things that happened on it, sharing results differently, time got all messed up, and execs love numbers, even if they're not really good for design decisions. And even something like that, even though it seems like a little bit of a personal reflection or whatever, I feel like, and it's really not that much of a personal reflection now that I think about it. It's more that the execs love the numbers, not that she does. It makes me love her even more because I agree. I think SUS and NPS are not helpful for design decisions, but man, do executives love their numbers. So I like that she's assessed that, which means she knows that she probably has to keep using them and working with them, even if they don't mean a lot for us in UX. Larry says this portfolio obviates the need for a lot of basic UX process questions, leading to more time to discuss deeper issues. Larry's right. When I get into an interview with Courtney, I don't have to say, tell me about your research process. I feel like I know her research process. I might be able to ask her different or deeper questions because she's covered some of the basic questions for me. She's given me such a good look into her process. And so for those of you who are in a boot camp or graduating a boot camp, you might say, oh, but I don't have a story like this. And I say, but you could. You could. You don't have to have done this for 1, 2, 3 years to have done something like this. Now, sure, Courtney's experience really helps her out. But even if you are still learning and practicing, you can try some of these same things. If you have a realistic project, you can go to a stakeholder and learn more about their goals. If you have a real project, you can see if they have existing research. You can go out and do desk research. You can make a proper plan. You can think about what's the right methodology for this and utilize that methodology. Nothing says you have to follow the cookie cutter formula that the bootcamp or the Udemy course or whatever told you. You can do these things. Courtney's doing a great job, and I don't want to make it sound like Courtney's not special. She's doing a great job. But more of you could do this too if you worked on studying more, learning more, leveling up, and trying the methods and approaches that are outside of what the bootcamp or course may have taught you. And that's going to be scary. These things are new. You might mess them up first before you get them right. And again, Courtney's experience shows. She's now got 3 years of experience, and you can see how much that shows. Who knows what her portfolio looked like right before or during her first internship? It may have looked more like where your portfolio is if you're still new. So this is what a portfolio should look like, in my opinion, for someone with 3, 4, 5 years experience, maybe 2. But this is really what I expect from a strong mid-level person, at least. Pradyot says I should have a pop filter because of the audio. Yeah, I never bothered putting a compressor on this mic. It's not so much that I need the pop filter. I really need a compressor. And I tried to put one on and it did some weird stuff. So I'll make a note as a weekend project. Try to get the compressor working again. Hold on, I'm writing it down. compressor. It's also that I have a very excited way of talking. I don't have like a very smooth, monotone way of talking where I'm always like this. I get very excited about stuff and then I'm probably redlining and all that. So I really just need a compressor. But thank you for reminding me, Pradyot. I used to have one on here and then I think some of you complained about I didn't have it set right. So I got to spend more time on it. But I bought a bunch of compressor plugins, so and I do have a certificate in audio engineering, so, I should be able to figure this out. Larry says, I would ask questions about why she focused on existing solutions as much as she did. That's not a question a junior would be able to answer, though. It's an example of a senior level question. Cool. All right, so we've gone almost an hour and a half in what should be an hour show. So thanks to everybody for your time and your patience. I hope you learned a lot. There's my slides and me, and let's also cut back to me. Hello. So any last thoughts or questions here before we wrap up? Thank you again for putting up with an extra long show. Usually these are 1 hour long, but I knew we were going to have a lot to say because I get so many questions about portfolios and how to make them better. Radu says, I can also recommend the Shure MV7, little brother of the SMB7. Yeah, I've got the SM7B in my this is my desk, and I have a professional studio in the other part of my house. Some of you see it in the old videos, though it's got this mic. I bought an SM7B, and I'm not afraid to buy another one. I know that one's got a pretty strong built-in compressor on it. It really flattens out a lot of stuff. But then I end up having to warm up my voice a little bit in the EQ, so split the difference. But I'm going through a Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 4th generation, so I'm all about the XLR microphone. That's my jam. Pradyot says, me too. I studied from SAE New York. I studied from Audio Recording Technology Institute in New York, which I think closed before you were born. So again, apologies for some of the overexcited talking I did today, which has led to 2 people making microphone and audio recommendations to me. I apologize. This must have been an exceedingly boisterous adventure today. Please remember to subscribe over on the YouTube channel and ring that bell and say you want to see all the things. And won't you find 3 people who you know would enjoy this show and get something out of it and tell them about it. Keep that growing. Pass it on because YouTube doesn't like to show me in search results. That's a story for another day. So we're just going to have to grow organically, and I kind of rely on all of you to tell people about the show. The audio was great and the tips shared. Tara says, thanks. Do you do product design portfolio reviews? Yes. Let me put up on the screen the address for how to get a portfolio review from me, though it is actually, I think it's on this page. I think if you go to deltacx.com/links, you should see a link to how to get a free portfolio review from me. I do 1 free one for each person. Once you've already had your free one, if you want a second one, I do charge $50 American, but you can certainly get 1 free one for free. Jay says, where do you advise learners to go learn more? Jay, that's tough. Right now, a lot of stuff out there is garbage. I'm having a very hard time finding good UX courses at all. I haven't found anything that's cheap or free that's good. And I do like Curiosity Tank, not sponsored, for research, but they're probably too expensive for your average person. So unfortunately, hey Javon, very informative. Thank you. Thank you. So again, please do subscribe, find some people to tell about the channel. And again, do check our upcoming schedule. So for example, tomorrow, is, every Tuesday is office hours, Ask Me Anything, and I'm here live taking your questions. So any questions you have about portfolios, careers, personas, how to do work, both research and design, I take everybody's questions live for an hour. It's totally free, and it's a way that all of you can get whatever help you feel like you need. There's always an anonymous way to ask questions in case some of you want to dish on your jobs, as you do. Thank you. Larry says the Delta CX channel is the best place to learn the right things. That would be my slogan. Thank you. Hi. It's the best place to learn the right things.com. All right. I've been over talking and I've got to get ready for my next call. All right. So hopefully that page has portfolio reviews on it. If not, I think the address is deltacx.link/portfolio dash review or reviews. I can't remember. I think it's review singular. It'll take you to my calendar. My calendar will drop an appointment in my calendar, but you're not invited. I do the portfolio reviews alone at this desk. I send you a video. No, it doesn't go on YouTube. I send you a private video of my thoughts on your portfolio. There's tough love in there. You've got to be ready for it. It is not going to be all hearts and flowers and good news. They're not all like Courtney's. Courtney falls into the 4% of portfolios that I see where it's like, wow, this person can really do this. I want to talk to them. 96% of the portfolios I see, people just don't look ready for the job. That doesn't mean you'll never be ready for a job, but it means more learning and practice first. Okay, so then I will see everybody tomorrow, right? We're on for tomorrow. Who's coming? For office hours, Ask Me Anything. Shows are typically 6:30 p.m. Italy time, since that's where I live. And, don't forget Wednesday's show. Wednesday's show, also at 6:30 p.m. Italy time. We're going to have a real live lawyer. And the real live lawyer is going to talk to us about legal stuff, because many of you have told me you are or want to be freelancers, contractors, or maybe start your own agency or company, and many of you are effing it up. Many of you have ended up in very difficult situations and conflicts that would have been solved by better contracts and agreements and legal things in place. So we're going to get some general advice from a lawyer on Wednesday. Manuel says, I'll be there. And for those of you who are just curious cats, the lawyer is my uncle. So he is the only family member of mine you will ever meet, mostly because everybody else has passed, or who I have gleefully thrown out of my life. So for fun, you get to meet somebody I have known since I'm born. So there you go. Come meet Uncle Jay on Wednesday. He's a fantastic lawyer, and he will answer whatever questions he can about starting your own business, making sure you have good contracts, being properly insured. Get your questions ready. All questions are welcome. I told him to expect questions at all levels, expect questions from newbies, expect questions from people who've already made mistakes. He said, got it. So we are going to be here to help you. Kelly says, I need this. Well, great. I hope you'll be here on Wednesday for that show. That'll be Wednesday's show. And then, of course, yes, we're calling it legal issues for you. So yeah, come with your questions. Again, he's a lawyer in America, but I told him many of you are outside of America, so he's going to try to give just some good general tips. And that's it. So thanks for staying extra late, everybody. I'm going to play us out of here, and I'll see y'all very soon. Good luck with your portfolios, and stay healthy. Customer centricity as business intelligence. Visit deltacx.com to learn why we are